Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me this week. So this week I'm going to be talking about practices that we use that really limit students' thinking. So if you're interested in finding out some of the practices that we actually use that limit students' thinking and learning, then please keep on watching. Okay, I've been engaged in some really deep conversations with different educators from around the world. And we were discussing some of the practices that we actually use that limit students' thinking and their learning. And one of them is don't look at your partner's work. So it is common practice to actually say to your students not to look at each other's work. But I think it's really important to encourage students to look at each other's work so that they can share ideas and learn from each other. Peter Lijdel, I hope that's how you pronounce it, wrote this wonderful book called Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, and he talks about an important idea called knowledge mobility. To paraphrase him, this is the idea that you never tell your students something that they can tell each other. So let me just repeat that. As a teacher, never tell your students something that they can actually tell each other. Because there's this idea of knowledge mobility, where knowledge actually is mobile around the classroom, and you do not have to be the source of all knowledge. You do not have to be the sage on the stage or even the guide on the side. Maybe you're the meddler in the middle that's provoking thought, that's pushing student thinking by asking more questions and giving more scaffolding prompts to help students progress in their learning journey. So one of the practices that I think really limits student thinking and learning is telling students not to look at each other's work, but instead let's celebrate student thinking and let them share and collaborate and adopt a social constructivist environment where students are able to learn from each other. Another limiting practice that we tend to adopt as teachers is to put pressure on students' thinking by giving them a time limit. So let's say I give you a high ceiling, low threshold task, which is engaging, exploratory, and there are special prompts and questions to help guide student thinking. But then I say, you've got 10 minutes to do it. Now that time pressure is actually going to provide a barrier to students' thinking and learning. So instead, we should give students the time that they need. And I know that time's always an issue for teachers, because we do have content that we have to get through. But remember, if we invest time into student agency and we allow students to explore concepts in their own time, then that's going to lead to a better, deeper conceptual understanding of the material, and you're not going to have to reteach it in the future. Now, another limiting practice that I think we tend to adopt is to give students lots of quizzes, and this is particularly in the mathematics classroom. So we'll give students quizzes under a time limit. Now, in my opinion, I think we don't need to let students know about their progress, and we do not have to collect evidence of student learning by giving quizzes and also giving percentages and marks. We can actually collect qualitative data in terms of students answering different prompts and explaining concepts in words. So let's try to collect evidence of student learning by collecting qualitative data and asking students to answer certain prompts. So those three limiting practices that I think block student learning and thinking are: one, telling students not to look at each other's work, and that we should actually be utilizing that idea of knowledge mobility more. Two, putting time pressures and time limits on student thinking when they're engaged in a high ceiling, low threshold learning experience. And three, always using percentages and quantitative data to collect evidence of student learning instead of collecting qualitative data. So if you have any limiting practices that you think block students' thinking and learning, please share in the comment section below. Thank you so much for joining me again this week, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.